They're not trusting in ourselves. Who delivered us from so great a peril of death, and will deliver us, he on whom we have set our hope, and he will yet deliver us. You also joining in helping us through your prayers, so that thanks may be given to many persons on our behalf for the favor bestowed on us through the prayers of many. So what he's saying then is that God's grace is so, and his power is so much greater than sin and evil, that he is able to transmute that to a greater good. And he's able to give us a message whereby we can comfort another person. If whatever the particular kinds of adversities that he allows in our lives, it could be there for a redemptive purpose. We don't see the whole of right now. But what if it turns out that that thing that we went through that made no sense at the time turned out to be a vehicle by which we could actually have a lifetime, in fact, an eternal impact on eternal beings? Then would it have been worthwhile, you see. And when we see that then in the tearless, painless, sinless, deathless world of heaven, all will be made well. So here we have an opportunity then, in this world of pain and adversity, to become agents of the new creation, to mediate the life of God, and already begin to have a hint of what that's supposed to be about. Because in that context, then, there will be great beauty that will abound. Let me give you two other verses that come to my mind that relate to this theme that we're discussing. Romans 15, 1-4 is the first of these. So this is a theme we see in a lot of passages, and these are just some of the verses that have come to my mind. Romans 15, 1-4. Now we who are strong ought to bear the weakness of those without strength, and not just please ourselves. Each of us is to please his neighbor for his good, to his edification. For even Christ did not please himself, but as it is written, the reproaches of those who reproached you fell on me. It's a very significant notion then, that we're called actually to become other-centered. And to recognize the more we grasp, if we're strong in him, our call to, as we become strong in him, is to bear the weaknesses of those without strength. Not seeking merely to please ourselves. Or, as Galatians puts it, Galatians chapter 6, a similar text. Both of these are near the end of those epistles, respectively, because they are by way of application. If this is who you are, then this is how you are to live. And so these are applications specific to the implications of who we are in Jesus. Brethren, or Galatians 6:1, even if anyone is caught in any trespass, you who are spiritual, restore such a one in a spirit of gentleness. Then he goes on to say, each one looking to yourself so that you too will not be tempted. No, don't get so cocky. Realize that you could also fall in the same trap. Your call is to restore other people who have fallen in any way, and to be agents who do it with grace and humility and gentleness. Now, he goes on to say, bear one another's burdens, and thereby fulfill the law of Christ. For if anyone thinks he is something when he is nothing, he deceives himself. But each one must examine his own work, and then he will have reason for boasting in regard to himself alone, and not in regard to another. And so the idea here is that we are called then to bear one another's burdens when those burdens are so heavy that they cannot be borne by them. We are called to go alongside of them. Interesting, then he goes on to say each one will bear his own load. But the words are different in the Greek. One word speaks about a burden that one person cannot carry. Another is one that we all have a burden to carry. But at the same time, God has given us the grace to also assist others when the burden is beyond their ability. And so there's a nuance in that meaning. The point here is to examine your work and then not boast regarding yourself, but to recognize that whatever God's given you is really a stewardship that he's entrusted to you to become a person, an agent of change. So what I'm suggesting here then is even our afflictions can layer us and give us a life message and engage us in the ministry of evangelism and of edification. And that is really a high calling. As we seek through evangelism, that's the highest good of the person who doesn't know Jesus, is to come to know him. Edification, the highest good of the person who does know Jesus, is to become like him. So therefore, the expression of love for others is going to be E squared, evangelism and edification, if we look at it in that sense, you see. That's the highest expression of love. Is what is the highest good? Remember, love is the steady intention of your will toward another's highest good. So the agape of God is a volitional love, whereby we intend another's highest good. And when we think about the highest good of another, is it not for them to come to know life and him who is the source of life? And then, secondly, is it not for them to become like him? To know him and to become like him. So that is a great gift and great calling that God's given to us. Closing thoughts. Yeah, two of them right next to each other.
This reminds me, it seems sort of like the active side of Jesus' oft-repeated words of judge not.
Yeah, this is the active side of the judge not. This is the active side where in humility we bear their burdens. And also then he says, and I love this, look to yourselves, lest you also be tempted. Be very careful here. When another falls and you're even ministering to them, don't get this cocky attitude that you're better than they are. We have to be this is very nuanced stuff, because the scriptures have a very realistic anthropology. Biblical anthropology is exceedingly realistic. It understands our capacity, our proclivity to rebellion, and our natural fleshly aspirations and intentions. The scriptures are brutally honest when it comes to human nature, and therefore never trust in yourself, but trust in him who is in you. That's where it says. And therefore, look to that. And when you are ministering to another, thank him for the grace of God in your life, but also beware lest you get arrogant. So you serve that person with humility and not with arrogance. Ben, you have...
What is the place of tough love in all of this, and the danger of pridefulness, I guess, in refusing to help?
Yeah.
And you're practicing tough love.
Yeah. So there are and Ben's pointing out two extremes. On the one hand, the tough love can be so tough that you have no love. And it can be something that does not have compassion and caring. And sometimes it can be love so much that it has no discipline. You see, there's a tension here, love and discipline. That what I mean by discipline is, what if a person needs to grow through an experience? I do not want to be an enabler in that sense. But on the other hand, wisdom determines whether I am called to help them in that process, in that journey. And to me, it's person specific and situation dependent. There's no one rule. I have to pray for the wisdom of God to apply the truth in that particular situation. And in some cases, I'm called to lift them up. And in other cases, I might be called to exhort, possibly to rebuke, or to encourage. You see, all of these are aspects. And when we do that, then we have a kind of prophetic ministry. By that I mean, when you look at 1 Corinthians 14, he says, one who prophesies speaks to others for consolation, edification, and exhortation. And so those are aspects whereby we can have a prophetic ministry in the lives of other people. Yes?
In this issue of enabling and so forth,
Pat, yeah.
Can't you walk with that person without encouraging or enabling or whatever, to know that they have support?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think a lot of people want to make it one or the other, whether you or not.
Yeah, I don't think it's one or the other.
From you because you need to deal with it.
Yeah, I think one can go so far as to make